Hi, my name is Winsley, and welcome to this guide on crit chance, fumble chance, and morale. This is supposed to be a comprehensive guide on everything that I could find in the game that affects those statistics. And we got some guests here to help me keep things straight in my head. We have Mr. No and Ninjew. Hi, guys.
Hey, hi.
Hey,
Thanks for joining me
hello.
here. I do think you guys are some of the people who have the best understanding of crit chance in the community, not just like my community of multiplayers, but in terms of everyone who plays Planetfall. I know Mr. No, you spent a lot of time on some spreadsheets, making them, I think, easy to understand for people who are less data oriented.
As best I can.
Yeah, and I talked to him while he made the spreadsheet, so like I'm basically an expert too, you know?
Well, I've seen it in game. You guys are
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
awesome
sure.
with it. You can do some crazy stuff, some very impressive stuff. Um, we'll save the Excel spreadsheet for later when it comes up. I have a lot of notes that I've taken. We'll just start off with some basics first, explaining crit chance, fumble chance, and grazes, and how those all actually interact with each other, going through the numbers as far as we're aware. And then we'll talk about morale in more detail, mods after that. I think we'll move into units after we've talked about the mods, and then the prime rank skills that you can get on your units, because there's two that are very relevant to certain strategies. There's the critical one and the morale one, which give you, extra crit chance and extra morale, which translates into crit chance. After that, I think we can talk about hero skills and operations and doctrines. I'm not sure if we really want to go too much into the other ways to affect morale, like the racial happiness. When you get colonies or race colonies, that will affect how happy units are from that faction. So it's kind of important, but it's also a minor detail that you can completely miss after hundreds of playthroughs, I'd say. I don't know, we could talk about landmarks and anomalies, but I feel like at that point we're really getting into niche territory. And I didn't include the NPC factions because you can't really rely on them. I also had been looking at a lot of data from a lot of different factions. I didn't want to try generating them in game because it's kind of a pain. But yeah, I think we're ready to go over the basics. So as you can see here, we have crit chance and fumbling, what the game tells you about it when you type it into the Imperial Archives. It's not a lot of information. It says that when you crit, you're going to do 50% extra damage and it's guaranteed hit. That means all your repeating attacks will be crits. It won't just crit on one action in a repeating attack that can do multiple actions. Sometimes you have to move forward and you get two actions, and if you crit on one of them, then you're going to crit on the other one. It also says a little bit about grazes, but it doesn't give you the really important information, which is that you can't graze there's never more than 25% chance to graze. If you have a 95% chance to hit, your chance to graze is 5%, and you won't miss, if I understand correctly, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple things here that are missing that I would consider pretty vital information. So the big thing is, so grazes do 50% 50% damage, and they like. So when we say that there's like a guaranteed 25% chance to graze, or that if you have 95% chance to hit, then you have 5% chance to graze, that's like as an alternative to hitting. That's not like, okay, if you hit, then you roll like this 1 in 20 chance to graze. It's saying that there's a 95% chance that you hit, and then if you don't hit, you're going to graze, because the remaining 5% out of that 100 is graze. So whatever your chance to hit is, you would normally figure like, okay, if I have a 60% chance to hit, then I have a 40% chance to miss. But that's not true, and that's where grazes come in. Grazes represent up to 25% of that miss chance is actually a graze chance.
Mm-hmm.
So at 75% chance to hit, you will never miss. Barring, some attacks will still miss.
Fumbles, I just thought you won't miss unless you fumble, and
Yes,
we'll
that's
get into
true.
that in a sec.
Yeah, but If you have a 75% chance to hit, you don't have 75% chance to hit, 25% chance to miss. You have 75% chance to hit, 25% chance to graze, 0% chance to miss.
Mm-hmm.
But if you once you get down to 70%, since graze only takes up 25% of that, at 70%, you have 70% chance to hit, 25% chance to graze, 5% chance to miss. Did you add something to say, Mr. No?
Yeah, briefly, there are some weapons that don't have graze bans. A lot of the indirect fire AoE weapons, like missiles or some grenades and stuff, will instead of grazing, they scatter. So when you see that text that says scatter, that's what happened. It rolled, it failed the hit, so it scatters. And
doesn't it always
the scatter?
It's not like if you have a 10% chance to hit, it's still going to hit something, right? It's just
so what it scatters, and then scatter is either within 1 hex or within 2 hex, depending on the weapon, and wherever it hits, it deals full damage there.
Yeah, but there's so on those weapons there is no graze chance at all.
Yeah,
the graze mechanic is replaced by the scatter mechanic.
Yes.
Awesome. See, that's why I'm really happy to have you guys here, because I would have missed that entirely. I would have skipped over that detail. It's very easy to miss that. I didn't understand grazes until I looked this up, and I've been playing the game for a year and a half, almost 2 years now.
The big thing that I would say that is not mentioned on this page that I would say is would be considered pretty common knowledge among if you're in the game community or whatever. But if you're just someone who has never gone to the Discord and asked questions or never particularly talked to anyone else about the game or looked at patch notes and stuff, this doesn't tell you that crit chance is capped by 2 hit chance, which is, I think, one of the more important things to know when you're getting in depth into considering how crit affects your gameplay and what the value of crit is. This used to not be the case, and the results were really overpowered. So this was one of the earliest balance changes they made, was if you have a crit chance of 30% and your 2 hit chance is 10%, your actual crit chance is 10%. Your crit chance cannot be higher than your 2 hit chance. That means that if you have a 70% chance to crit, but a 10% chance to hit, you can no longer just take that pot shot and crit 70% of the time and get your automatic hit, right?
Yeah, I think they introduced that they made that change for Oathbound because Oathbound were able to guarantee crits, essentially, at least when they first came out. Then they decided they wanted crit chance to never be higher than your hit chance, and that made it so you couldn't guarantee your crits.
There's 2 different changes here. Mr. Nutter, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, the original crit chances capped by hit chance thing was a few weeks after launch. There was basically a build you could do with Vorpal snipers back then that could hit a guaranteed 100% crit chance or something absurd like that all the time.
It was 60%, but 60% is really fucking high when you're talking about what would otherwise be a 10% chance to hit. And it does 50% extra damage too.
Yeah, and Indentured could do a similar thing. So that was absurd, because you're taking 5% shots and you're nigh guaranteed to hit and dealing bonus damage and giving bonus stagger, and that was absurd.
Mm-hmm.
So that changed. I think, wasn't there something weird about Providence on release that exempted it from that?
Yeah, I think you could get 100% crit chance, and it wasn't limited by hit chance with Providence.
Yeah, basically, if you used Providence at Star King's release, Providence would guarantee a hit every single time, or guarantee a crit every single time. Then it was changed to also be capped by crit chance. So if you have a 60% chance to hit, Providence gives you a 60% crit chance.
Yeah, see, I never played around with crit chance, because in my mind, I always figured if you've got around 30% crit chance, going from a 1 in 3rd attack going and critting and 1 in 2 isn't worth investing that much Cosma in. In my head, I told myself that the odds of that actually coming in useful are kind of low. But that's kind of essentially what you mapped out in your Excel spreadsheet, right, Mr. No?
Yeah. roughly?
Well, so it's kind of a complicated discussion because on the one hand, you have how critical hits perform on average or in general, but usually your crit chance is not going to be like 50% or 60%. It's going to be like 10%, maybe as high as like 30% in most cases, which puts a very different spin on how it plays out in practice. Because technically, and we can get into the Excel spreadsheets and shit later, technically, each successive point of crit percent is less valuable than the one before it. Technically, you get diminishing returns, though they're kind of minute. But if you have 18 units and all of them have 10% crit chance, that means in a single turn, you are on average getting 1.8 critical hits, which you paid, if we assume this is like targeting Damon or something, to get that 10%, that's, 18 times 5 is 60. Wait, 90?
You're doing
90
math
cosmite?
live. This is always a bad idea.
Yeah, but like 90 cosmite to get 2 critical hits a turn is very low value, especially because most combats in Planetfall tend to have, like, not every turn is equal. There's usually going to be 1 to 3 really key turns that kind of decide the fight, and then the rest of the fight is either posturing to get a better position in those 1 to 3 turns, or like playing the mop up of those 1 to 3 turns and trying to eke out what additional advantage you can get. So if you paid 90 cosmite to get less than 6 critical hits when it counts, that is not very good value because crits are not consistent.
They're helpful in certain situations, though. I will say I didn't think we were gonna win that fight in the multiplayer we played earlier today, but there was a crit that changed it all on a unit with Skitter, which is going to always be hard to hit. And then when that went through, it wasn't a graze; it was full damage and extra damage.
Yeah, we got lucky.
The issue with this is that it swings really hard in either direction. Like, because you're dealing with something that's so chance-based at low values, you could crit every shot. That is within the realm of possibility. And then that investment would have paid itself off to insane degrees. Or you could make that investment and get no crits, in which case it was worth absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Again, if you paid 90 cosmite, if you paid 90 cosmite to get 10% crit chance on 18 units and only 6 of them actually resulted in a crit, that's very poor returns. Even though if you spread this out across 50 turns or something, where you assume all units are firing every single turn, it averages out to pretty good value. But because of the nature of Planetfall being just a few turns in a combat are going to decide most of the combat, and the unreliability of crit chance, having a higher crit chance is more valuable, but on paper it technically is not.
Before we move on past the basics, I did want to mention that crits do add a level of stagger, which is in here. I believe somewhere it says that. And that's something you can't really rely on, but is super nice when you can stagger a sniper just with like an indentured critting. That make a big difference. One thing I forgot to test, and we could probably do pretty easily, is whether or not it forces status effects to go through. Because I believe at some point I convinced myself it did. So if like you put a stun module on somebody, I'm
pretty sure it doesn't.
Okay.
I know that grazes, going the other direction, graze, I don't think the page you were just on mentioned that. Grazes will reduce level of stagger to, it's either by 1 or 2-0. You don't have many massive impact attacks, so I don't usually notice. But and I think it either removes or reduces the strength of status effects.
Okay. So yeah, I set up this combat just to kind of see, like, just to show off a crit chance and why it's so good. The first shot I took had some crit chance, but it didn't go through. But that's okay because I thought it was like 40%. I I was able to turn a shot that was like 40% accuracy into something that was better. Oh well. I think that
your hero was the one that crit when he attacked.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll let the AI finish this fight. And then I will put a mod on one of my units that can do what's it called? A status effect, and then force it to crit, because in this save I used some cheat codes to give myself everything, and we have the operation which guarantees crits, so we'll be able to see that pretty quickly, pretty easily here. Just got to put stun on him. The stun module. Where is it? It's gonna be there.
I feel like we've tested this before. I don't remember what the results of it were.
Yeah.
I feel like I would remember it if it was guaranteed. It's the only reason I feel like it's not.
I feel
guaranteed.
I feel like it might have been a rumor for a really long time that like crits and fumbles change stuff with the status effects, and that always felt right. But then when we actually tested it in practice, we found that as far as we could tell, it wasn't doing anything.
Right.
I don't know. That was a fucking while ago that we did that.
I know I'm being dumb. I'm just letting them get close so I can do my thing.
Yeah, I mean, we might want to talk a little bit about like how crit works with like repeating versus single action units.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's particularly more valuable in one type or the other. It kind of continues to exemplify the differences between both of those.
I think.
But I think it's equally valued to both of them. Is that right, Mr. No? Or what do you think?
On the averages, it should come out the same, but it's the same swing issue that I was talking about before. Because when you crit on a repeating attack, you are going to remember to providence it first.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Please when you crit on a repeating attack, it's going to crit on all three of them, and that. If you can crit on all three of them, that might turn a shot into
I guess something to specify then is that crit is rolled not per hit, but like at the time that the attack starts. So this is before a shot has been fired, it rolls crit, and then if you crit, the entire attack is a crit. But if it's not a crit, it's not like you get to re-roll on each subsequent repeating attack. If the first hit doesn't crit, none of them are going to crit.
It did look like it took a roll to see if it got the stun there, and it got it.
I saw the 40% chance there.
So I'm pretty sure it doesn't guarantee it. Stop autoing. Damn it.
But yeah, so the deal is that if you crit on the auto, it might. If you crit on the repeating attack, it might be that like your repeating attack wasn't going to kill the unit, and you were going to have to put AP from something else into killing the unit.
Yeah.
But now you like, and it might have been like massively overkill before, but now it's not massively overkill anymore. It can just happen to work out to exactly the right number to kill stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so slightly better on repeating because of that, but it can go both ways.
And repeating doesn't mean that it does multiple crit checks. I think it only does one crit check. And I think we were talking about this beforehand. There's a little bit of a debate on the subject on how crit and fumble chance work. If it does crit chance, then fumble chance, and then hit chance, or if it does fumble chance first, or if it does hit chance first. I'm not really sure. But I would assume it does a crit chance first, right?
Before Mr. No says anything about the extensive research he's done into this topic, I'm going to completely undercut him and say that a big part of the reason why there's debate and why we don't really know if it's crit first or fumble first is because the difference that makes is so minute that it's mostly not even worth talking about, really, except out of like a curiosity sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like edge cases you can come up with where it would matter a lot if it worked one way or the other, but even just achieving those is kind of difficult to do.
The basic issue is just that there's sources of fumble are uncommon outside of morale, and sources of crit mean you probably have positive morale.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find a situation where you have both fumble chance and crit chance, and they are both high enough value that you can sort of make guesses about expected outcome.
Yeah.
Just my personal feeling on the topic, based on what I've seen, is that it just feels like if one of my units gets the distracted debuff from that what are they called,
Royals. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sex bots.
Yeah. Now, don't say that. This is a PG-13 game.
I already said the F word.
Yeah, or disoriented. Or my feeling is that when I get these debuffs that put on a token amount of it, I just feel like I get less crits. So my rough guess is that Fumble is overwriting crit. If you fumble, then you don't get to roll crit.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I would have to like either run extensive tests, just running, like, because the combat log doesn't show you crit and fumble chance, so you just have to watch it play out over and over and over again.
Yeah,
or
it'd be wonderful if they added that
and open up the code, and I'm not going to do that.
Somebody make a mod. I'm sure that's totally reasonable.
Oh, actually, a good way to test would be to mod in a anti-providence that gives you 100% fumble chance.
Oh yeah.
And see if you ever crit.
Somebody get on that. How do you spell cerebral? I did want to mention, since it's kind of related here, that you can make units into mindless units, and mindless units don't get morale. And that's a great way to not only avoid fumble chance, but to also get a little bit of crit chance. When you make something into an indentured using this thing, then overseers give something called, I think it's imposed discipline. Overseers and subjugators, although nobody uses subjugators. These guys are pretty awesome as is.
I think we're about getting ready to start talking to, like, here's the mods that grant crit chance, and here's the units that have crit chance inherent. So before we get on to that, just final thing to say about crit chance in general is the way that it interacts with accuracy is kind of interesting, because it's both effective, or not accuracy, I guess I should say effective accuracy, or shots that you hit because of crit chance that you would not have hit if you did not have that crit chance. It's affected both by that upper bound of it can't be higher than your hit chance, and also if you have a high hit chance, you're going to hit the attack anyways. So the increased accuracy from critical hits isn't playing as large of a part on high accuracy attacks. So what that kind of comes out to is the value of crit versus an equal amount of like plus damage or plus accuracy. I think we've determined that on average we'd consider like plus 5% crit to be about equal to plus 5% damage, or probably a little bit more valuable than plus 5% accuracy. But in specific situations, that number varies quite a bit, because it is on average going to be plus 50% damage from the amount of crit chance. So if it's 10% crit chance, you're on average getting a damage increase of 5%. So the remaining 5% has to be made up for by that accuracy. If you have a low accuracy shot, like if you have 30% to hit and also have 30% crit, that crit is actually giving you a lot of effective accuracy. And I think Mr. No has graphs and shit that show how that works.
I'll pull those up real quick so people can see them.
Those graphs, actually, the ones that he gave you are a little bit different. That has taken his increase from...
That's effective damage estimates. The accuracy stuff was lost to the hard drive failure.
Nothing can be done now.
But yeah, basically, I mean, like, if you have an 80% chance to hit, then 80% of the time you're going to hit. So whatever, if you then have like even if you say you have 50% chance to crit, well, you're only failing to hit in cases where you would have missed. So that's 1 out of 5 times, or 20% of the time you would have missed. So your gain in accuracy is 50% times that 20%. So you get like a 10% increase in effective accuracy. So 10% effective accuracy plus that would be like 25% extra damage, means that on that 90% or on that 80% shot, your actual effective damage increase was not 50% from 50% accurate or 50% critical. your effective damage increase on average is actually like 35%. So in that case, plus crit is actually less valuable than plus damage. But again, when you're talking about lower accuracy shots, it's actually substantially higher than plus damage. So crits get weird. Crits are swinging.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, it's one of those things I haven't done enough with because I'm not a gambler. I don't like taking those risks that come with big rewards, but it's definitely an effective strategy. And one of the things I really want to kind of like get your thoughts on as we move through the units and mods is what is viable and what is just like too far out there to really make sense. I know Mr. No has done some really crazy things with some high tier units and some high tier mods, so he's probably got some, I think, really interesting thoughts to share on that subject.
Yeah, Mr. No, you better be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, before we move past morale, I did want to point out that it doesn't tell you what you get for positive morale or negative morale here. It's pretty annoying. But I did some tests where I gave myself negative morale by raising, and positive morale is pretty easy to come by. And what I have in my notes is when you are between 199 and negative 199, there's no effect on crit and fumble chance. 200 to 399 is plus 10% crit chance. 400 to 599 is 15% crit chance. 600 and above is plus 20% crit chance. When you go negative, I'm just going to say negative 200 and negative 400, faster and easier to say. That is plus 20% fumble chance. Negative 400 to negative 500, negative 600, I gotta be consistent, is 40% fumble chance, and negative 600 and below is plus 60% fumble chance. So it's similar, the steps that they take, but the fumble chance is twice as much for your making a step in the negative direction as you get crit chance when you take a positive step away from neutral.
So basically, if something tells you that it gives you plus 200 morale, if you start at 0, it's going to give you, in general, it's going to give you plus 5 crit chance, but the first plus 5 you get is doubled. So going from 0 to 200 gets you plus 10% crit chance instead of the usual plus 5. At more than 600 morale, you don't gain any additional crit, and once you start getting into negative morale, you're gaining fumble instead, which is a constant minus 20 for every level of unhappiness.
It's pretty nasty. I think that keeps you from, being able to use units from factions that you are burning cities down in for the most part. I don't see you getting that much negative morale unless somebody's playing side number and they're hitting you with those really nasty operations.
There's a few things that can cause significant negative morale. Stuff like fighting in a hazard can cause that.
I think there's only one that does that, though. Isn't it just the
tear? It's a number hazard.
Yeah, that's the only one that I could find that actually reduces the morale in fight. Like, it reduces happiness. A lot of the things will make your colonies less happy, but it won't actually affect the unit's happiness in the fight. But
there's that void tech strat op, the destabilization bomb or whatever it is.
Yeah. There's.
Oh, well, yeah.
This isn't a morale video, so we don't need to go in on that too much. It's also not about fumbles, technically. Them being the other side of not even really them being the other side of crit is they're relevant to the discussion.
Yeah, morale ties them together, and I think we can now start talking about the mods themselves, going through each faction. The first one I've got lined up is Assembly.
Mm-hmm. Assembly is definitely the big. You get a crit chance mod faction because it's it's actually the second mod that they get, but it's very good. For 5 Cosmite, you add 20% crit chance.
I think it's one of the better options for getting crit chance.
Yeah, I mean, it again, roughly speaking, we tend to value 10% crit chance is 10% damage, so that is a mod that gives plus 10% damage, right? And you also get 20% crit on that, which is, roughly 20% damage. So you could kind of read that as a plus 30% damage mod. That's pretty dang good for 5 Cosmite.
Is that the only mod? There may be one more, I think, for the Assembly Disassembler.
The Assembly Disassembler does not have a plus crit mod, it does debilitating infection,
Yeah.
which actually I don't think that affects morale. I think that's just like I forget what exactly it does. It's actually a pretty nasty debuff, but
I need to know how to spell. Wait, you can right click things, can't you?
DEBIL.
Ah. Yeah, no,
it actually does.
Yeah,
yeah, minus 400% morale.
This is what
My
I
bad.
spend most of my week doing, just looking for anything that affects morale in the slightest, because it's kind of hard to see that actually impacts things, and I think it makes disassemblers very nasty, even nastier to deal with. But I've never seen somebody use it. It's just too far off to the side and easy to forget about.
It's okay. It's an okay mod.
The main issue with that sort of thing, the unit-specific mods for high-tier units, is that you have to bash down the unit side of the research tree, and then you have to come back and bash down the mod side of the research tree.
Yeah, there's no connecting points.
This one isn't that bad, but there's like that repair mod for the Barbarian is awful for exactly that reason.
I guess we could talk a little bit about what's it called? The secret tech here. Celestian. It's got quite a lot that affects morale. I have it in front of us. Do you think we should just hop through the races and then the secret techs?
I think ideally what we would want to do is we want to go through all of the mods first. And then once we've gone through all the mods, we can start going through the racial units that have inherent crit chance. And from there, we can kind of branch off into, okay, here's like strategies with this unit. Because most of the crit chance strategies I can think of are kind of like based off a unit that also has inherent crit chance that also gets decent access to some kind of plus crit mod that helps enable it.
I mean, for the Celestian mods, all I was going to say on this was that there's a lot of things basically that can give you Enlightened, which is morale. It's 200 morale if you're Enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something that can give negative morale. I think it's something like Remorse.
It's Remorse, yeah.
Yeah. That one's pretty nice. I like that one a lot.
Does Soulburn give Soulburn doesn't give minus morale, right? Yeah.
No, I wish.
Soulburn is just a tag that other things interact with.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, what's the next, race secret tech on the plate to look at then?
After the Celestian, we can go back to the top here and let's see. I think I put Shakarn in there because I think they've got some nice things. I tried to organize it so it was like the fancier, more well-known strategies right at the top, and then we could just kind of talk about the other ones as we get to them. But basically, everybody's got some option, just some are better than others.
Yeah, Shakarn, I think they don't have a direct, crit strategy like some other races do, but they do interact with crit in several areas. Because the most obvious place being the Assault Exoskeleton gives plus 25% crit chance, which is pretty big. But they also have that early T1 sound mod. This says Deafening Amplifier, gives 30% Fumble Chance.
Yeah.
And then the Hollow Reality Mantle also gives minus 150 morale.
Yep, that's what I had in my notes. So Deafening Amplifiers, that's like tier 1. That's pretty accessible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on the Sonic tree. It's a very good mod for if you need to put some stuff on your Deadeyes really quickly. I wouldn't value that mod very highly in general, but as kind of a panic option, being able to, if you can get if you can use the AoE of the Deadeye to hit multiple enemy units with Deafening Amplifiers, that's a pretty decent decrease in effective damage. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely cost effective for that, though I don't think it plays into other things that Shakarn are doing well enough to really be a anything more than a kind of panic buy option.
Where's the Hollow Reality thing? I know you were just looking at it.
The Hollow Reality Mantle, I think that's pretty late in the Shakarn tech tree.
It's like ping.
It's right there,
isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's right underneath this thing that also has to do with crit chance. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it applies Broken Mind, so there you go.
Yeah, Broken Mind
minus 150 morale.
Broken Mind don't fail.
And that stacks up to 5 times Broken Mind. It can take it pretty far down, but the first one isn't going to actually change your morale unless you're
not by itself. No.
Unless they're like at 200 morale or something, then it will hop them down to neutral.
Yeah, technically Broken Mind can stack up to 5 times. I've almost never actually seen that happen. Generally, by the time that you can get Broken Mind on a unit 5 times, that unit will be dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does stack with itself, which definitely changes how some fights can play out, but I wouldn't give that too much consideration. It's very rare that I think you would want to look at that and really change your moves at all.
We got Xenoplague up here, so I think we can talk a little bit about their mods. They actually have quite a few that affect morale. There's one that makes it so you can't have negative morale. I think is that this one right here? Parasite?
Yes, it is. Technically, their NCAP one does it as well.
Oh yeah, I may have missed that.
And it's not even that they can't have negative morale. It's just that negative morale effects do not affect them. So if you have plus 600 morale and you get hit with Broken Mind, you still have plus 600 morale. It's not like you just can't go below 0. It's actually just immunity.
Yeah, it's got some other nice tricks that come along with it, but I think that being able not to have your morale dropped it's pretty nice. It'll allow you to crit more. Plague pods,
xenografted muscles, and all of the Xenoplague units. I guess we might as well throw them in here too.
Yeah, they do.
They can all apply. Yep, parasitic infection, minus 200 morale. And again,
nice.
The parasite and their very first mod and their very last mod both have the same effect where it gives you immunity to morale effects.
Yeah, I actually did have that in my notes. I forgot about it because I did that a while ago. All right, I think we could go to Amazon now. Amazon are pretty cool.
Amazon have a lot of extra morale. They don't really have a lot of extra crit, but they have a lot of things that they kind of frequently by accident just have that like passive 10 to 20% crit chance for morale all the time for doing stuff that they generally would have wanted to do anyways. The big thing,
and then they have that mod that like increases crit damage or something.
Oh, I may have
it's like
that.
an NCAP mod.
I need to write that down actually.
I think it's the spirit
critical damage.
I need to definitely write that down. Oh no, I have it, don't I? Yeah, I do. I thought there was only one. There's just a space there. Okay, that one's nice. Yeah, it's hard to get to, but it makes your animals just absolutely killer.
Yeah, that's something that I think is like decent value on its own, but I don't know if I would usually pay the cost for that unless I had enabled from a different secret tech or a different race, something that was giving me additional crit chance as well. They also have the Advanced Instinct controller, which is pretty early on, plus 200 morale, and all of their units get plus 200 morale when they're standing in a forest.
Yes.
Which, if you're orange, you maybe actually remember to take advantage of that, and it's really annoying.
It's this one, yeah. This is the one that gives morale. Yeah, I had that, and then one other thing for Amazon in my notes. It's something the Kiriko can do. It's Blightbringer.
Yeah, it's the bio mod. It's minus 400 morale.
That's this one?
Yeah, the blighted effect.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
It's a powerful effect. It does a lot more than just that, but for the purposes of this video, that's another source of reducing someone else's critical.
Yeah, a lot of things that reduce morale do something else on top because it's just like it's easy to like have that not do anything.
Yeah, morale's usually kind of a rider pack-in effect for a lot of things. It's not very often that only morale is being affected.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this guy was also Xenoplague. We can hop on over to Devar now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They got some cool mods.
They have one mod.
Oh, you're right. They only have one mod. I can read my notes. Too. It's like the Spirit Link thing that.
It's the Captain's Regalia. You stand next to them, you get plus 300 morale. 300.
Yeah.
It's a good mod.
I think if you use that with motivation, you're gonna have some pretty high levels of morale, and that will allow you to crit quite
motivation.
A bit.
That plus motivation is plus 600 morale, so that gets you to the highest level. Devar don't really get a not off of that. That's not really the basis of a crit build, and I would say we'll get into this a little bit more later. In general, I wouldn't recommend building for crit. I wouldn't usually consider that a win condition, but knowing where the sources of it come from and what units it can be particularly high value on helps you make some more optimal choices as you're working towards your eventual win condition.
I could see this being kind of useful for just raising morale on units before they make their attack. Just having a unit kind of like run between, almost like when you were telling me that enforcers can use their shield on units that are walking by and getting hit by Overwatch.
Yeah, or you can do the like negative effect version of that with Echoes of Despair, where they reduce the resistances of all units next to them. You can have them just kind of walk around and stand next to each unit that you're planning to attack.
We can talk about Heriter now, I think. There's a couple little mods for them. At least one that I can think of right now.
Yeah, they've got the S-Tech Acolyte Incarnation, which gives plus 100 morale per essence charge. It's a nice little bonus that makes up for that not really having like a direct... I guess you get plus 1 shield off of it. It's a pretty expensive mod to, I don't think, be getting plus 1 shield, but the essence transfer that you get from it is pretty powerful. And you get this additional morale too, which isn't that great of an effect, but like it can push you over the edge for hitting certain morale thresholds, which can be nice.
I was pretty... I was just gonna say I was embarrassed of one time I used the essence transfer on my own unit because I didn't really understand how it worked. I just wanted to get charge on my guy, and it's like, no, that's a free action. You should be using that on enemy units and then going in on them.
Using it on your own guys when you're not nearby enemy units or at like the start of the fight, where you just choose one of your own units to say, hey, this guy's not going to be useful for 2 more turns. It's very valuable.
Okay. Maybe like a Biomancer or something that's just going to scan.
Yeah,
not doing damage.
Especially that kind of thing. Support units or units that otherwise are not going to be attacking.
Okay. All right, next one in the list would be Oath? No, Kirko. Kirko, yeah, Kirko's got some fun stuff. I mean, most of it comes from the psychic tree, and the fact that they have the bio stuff as well. It means that both their weapon channels have the ability to play around with morale and crit chance.
Yeah, though they and this is kind of going into Syndicate as well. The Aether Storm is apparently their only source of negative morale on the side tree. That's the NCAP mod. I would not ever take Aether Storm because it gives Broken Mind. That's not even a consideration, I think, ever.
Yeah, but if it fails...
The insanity part of it is much more important.
If you removed that if resisted, apply Broken Mind instead, I probably would not even notice.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Focus Venom on the... Oh, that's also on the side tree. Yeah, okay. Focus Venom is pretty dang early. It's actually the second one, yeah. Gives you poison, which is minus 200 morale. It's nice. Poison's an okay status effect.
Yeah.
I very rarely see people use Focus Venom, but it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
It could definitely be helpful if you're fighting something that's weak to bio.
That's very important for people who are weighing their options. It's something that you wouldn't see used a whole lot, but it does do the trick. If you're playing, I don't know, Cynumber or something, and you just really want to lower people's morale, this is a way to do it. I mean, I would probably do like Cynumbra, Amazon, and go for the poison through their Doctrine. That's a really good way to do it. But if you want to do it another way, this is an option.
Yeah, it lets you can combo the poison with the Broken Mind with the Cynumbra Sadism Doctrine, which is a cool theory. I don't think I've ever actually seen it play out as well as anyone wants it to, but theoretically, yeah, you can do cool shit with that.
This does crit chance. Adrenal response glands. I don't think I've seen anyone use it before, but that doesn't mean it's not amazing and that it wouldn't help you win a match. Like, probably in single player, so yeah.
It's kind of a niche mod, but in theory, it is extremely powerful.
You'd want to just throw it on a Ravenous. Like, that's the unit's perfectly built for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the guy. Plus 5% crit per stack is probably not going to result in very much in most cases, but as an additional rider, it definitely, or as an additional rider effect, it definitely takes a mod that if I was looking at just the melee damage and the accuracy, I'd be like, well, that seems kind of crummy. But then you see the plus 5% crit chance too, and it's like, yeah, okay, that pushes it up to pretty good.
At least it's in the same tech as this thing, which is pretty awesome. Be giving units skitter is broken. I mean, we kind of saw that today in the multiplayer. I don't understand how that happened. I think it might be a multiplayer bug.
Yeah, there's something going on there. We'll have to. That's not really the topic of this video.
We will look into it and get back to you next time, next month.
I think next on the list is Oathbound.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. What about the secret tech?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Promethean.
Yeah, Promethean is different. I'll go find those notes. Oh, I didn't have anything for them. I don't think they have anything that actually affects morale or crit chance or fumble chance.
I'm trying to think. I don't think so.
Mods.
No, I don't think they do.
There's the prime rank on the purifier.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I guess. Sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Here, you want us to talk about that now?
We can go into that, yeah.
Okay. The big deal there is just that it's prime rank critical, which is like 15%, 20% crit chance. That's whatever on its own. If you combo that with the indentured tag that syndicate purifiers get, you can push that a bit higher and make something good out of it. But that's just like a modification of the standard indentured crit build.
That's a good point. Yeah. I actually wouldn't have thought of that, and I think that's easy to miss. I mean, I know people love indenturing purifiers and getting them really, really cheap. Because Promethean can reduce their cost on their special units, and indentured or syndicate can reduce on indentured. But the crit chance, most people don't actually look at the prime ranks too closely to see that you can get some extra crit chance from that as well. Next on our list is, I think, Oathbound. I don't think we've missed anything else. I think that's the last racial one. No, it's Syndicate after that.
We still have Syndicate to talk about, yeah, and Syndicate's kind of one of the big ones. So with Oathbound, you've got, I mean, we've kind of discussed already as one source of that is Providence, which you get either through the op or you get through their stupid flyer unit gets it. Is really obnoxious with it. I think they're called Watchers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Watchers can grant 100% crit chance. So Oathbound are probably the race that sees the most crits, though I wouldn't really consider them a crit build race because it's really just that one mechanic mostly. But it's definitely really good to understand what crits do when you use that. So the value of momentary insight, which grants you a unit providence, is that. So normally you'd use something like Embrace Darkness, right? Which gives you massive impact and 20% damage, and you also get Broken Mind on top of that. So that costs 1 op point, same cost as Momentary Insight. So when you're weighing Momentary Insight versus that, the thing is that Momentary Insight is kind of like getting a cast of that, but you're attaching it to a unit. So if your unit would normally do 30 damage in an attack because it's a repeating unit or whatever, it's getting a pretty cool flank shot and has some damage mods, then you're getting 15 damage extra in your crit. Plus you also get the guaranteed massive impact from that. So that's rough value. That makes it sound kind of crummy, but you can also combo that with some other things too, because technically you don't get crit on your next attack, you get crit for the rest of the round.
Oh, so, resetting. Of course, I hadn't thought about that. Oh.
Yeah, resetting it lets you get 2 guaranteed crits. Or if it's a melee unit, then it gets guaranteed crits on its melee overwatches as well, if you can get those to trigger.
Wow, yeah. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't played around with that. And this faction's great at melee overwatch, so they should be able to do that a bit.
Yeah, great at melee overwatch is complicated. Short answer, yes. Long answer, they don't have stagger resistance.
Unless you go Celestian, right?
Yeah.
That was the other thing I forgot to mention, is that having crit chance on your Vorpal snipers is great unless they can't use their primary attack because it's attached to that. So having some stagger resistance is kind of like really nice on your snipers who you may want
Yeah.
to get more crits. I think it's a good thing to invest crit damage into because usually they're away from the fight. They don't need as much defense as they can go more in on the offense.
Yeah. We'll get to that when we start talking about Vorpals, I think, because we haven't gotten to the units yet.
Yeah, that's coming up pretty soon. We just got this Syndicate, whatever secret text are left, and that's it.
Well, we haven't even talked about the Oathbound mods at all.
Yeah.
You got the Battle Pattern Analyzer, which can inflict adversity on enemy units. That is a mod that sounds really obnoxious to use, and I really don't like using it. But Sinsling has used it against me, and it's definitely very effective. You kind of just you put that on your melee units. Your melee units walk up, and assuming they don't die, they get to basically decide, okay, this unit nearby me for a free action, it's just not going to have a good turn next turn.
Yeah.
So that's really good because you could use that on units that you're not planning on killing, and use that as kind of a way to that's like damage mitigation towards your next turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's also plight mitigators can give guaranteed providence. So same stuff applies as with providence, except your opponent has control over when that happens rather than you. Though really that's kind of like a disincentive. You really don't want to be giving your opponent free crits. There's basically no status effects in the game that are going to be worth it, especially since it dispels them at the start of their turn. So that's a really brutal mod to have on all of your units because it's like turning your enemy's status effects against them.
I just noticed the part in here about it saying that the unit cannot fumble naturally, so like it can be disoriented and fumble that way, but I think naturally means through morale. If your morale is really low, it's like whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna fumble. I might desert, but I'm not gonna fumble.
You know, I don't know if that might be something that we need to test. Because fumbling naturally to me sounds like anytime you would make a fumble roll, it's not going to fumble. But like something like adversity, which guarantees fumbles, would still work on it.
Yeah, I don't know if we can test that easily right this second, but maybe we'll put that in later. I'll write it in the written version. So if you're watching this, that should be out there somewhere. It is definitely worth looking into, though. I agree. Did we say anything
Additional footnote is Maxwell's Puzzle Box, which is the end of the Entropic weapon line. That is a mod that turns a unit into an artillery piece. It's a very powerful mod, but it's relevant to this discussion because it applies to random status effects, and some of them could decrease morale. I think Disoriented might be in that pool, which directly gives Fumble Chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Poisoned, Disoriented, Broken Mind. There's like quite a few that I could choose from. I actually created a list of everything all the buffs, but I put that at the end because I'm like, I'd rather talk about it when it comes up in a unit discussion or a mod discussion. I think that would be more helpful to people to see how these connect together. Did we say Destiny's Manuscript? Stuff about that? Where is that? I know it's around here somewhere.
Which mod is Destiny's Manuscript? I don't remember the name very well, but I probably am familiar with the mod if I see it.
There it is. Tier 9 late.
Oh yeah, that thing. There's actually also an op that has a very similar effect. This is actually like the effect of an op attached to a unit. You can have the unit basically just use the op. Has a 12 strength chance to give fatality or fatalism or adversity to units. So you can't really rely on that for this unit's definitely going to fumble next turn, because you don't know if it'll give it fatalism instead. But since it does it in a big AoE, that tends to be more of a you use that and then you see what effect that's going to have on the fight. You don't make your moves and then throw that down as like an assurance. You throw that down first and then base your future moves off of that depending on what results you get.
Yeah, the extra damage and armor seems pretty nice.
Yeah, basically, you throw that down. Units that get hit by fatalism, you plan to kill those. Units that are hit by adversity, you don't hit those because they're not going to have a good turn next turn anyways.
That's tier 9. It's one of these ones, right? Yeah, it's right here next to Beacon of Hope and
yeah. What is the
Expedite Doom? Your favorite?
No, it's man, fuck Expedite Doom. There's One of these ops that Oathbound does has a very similar effect, I'm pretty sure.
I
Like
probably
an
listed
AoE
it
that does
up
that. I think it
down
might be
here.
one of the entropic ones.
Or the operations. Yeah. Erratic Misfortune? Seems right.
Yeah, Erratic Misfortune, that's the name of it.
Oh god, I can spell.
Yeah, we don't have to go through every single like op that has some kind of morale effect, though. Definitely include that in the like write-up that you do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that finishes up Oathbound, though. Are there any
Yeah.
secret texts we didn't get to?
There's the
I know
synthesis
there's some Syndicate to
is
talk about.
pretty nice. It's got the crit chance right here at the very beginning. It's, I think, one of the
Yeah,
nicer ways to get crit chance.
yeah, it's definitely a very easy and convenient one since it's the very first mod. I would generally say targeting Daemon Shell is not. It's an okay mod. I think it really gets overshadowed by Guardian Daemon Shell, but like, yeah, it's a pretty decent mod, and you can use it as kind of like I don't think there's very many times where the crit chance would be like something that you're starting from, or that a build is going to be enabled by that crit chance to the point where it wouldn't really have worked without it. But it's definitely a really nice thing to throw on top if you already have a bunch of sources of extra crit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I need to go back to the units and mods now. I was in operations like, wait, we missed stuff. No. Just getting ahead of myself. There's the Doomsday. I don't know if you've seen this happen too many times, but plus 20% crit chance from a Doomsday seems kind of nice.
Oh right, yeah. I almost never see that come into play. That is pretty nice, actually.
Yeah.
20% accuracy and 20% crit chance.
Let's go Synthesis next game, next MP. All Synthesis or Celestian, one of those. Play around with
I've
this.
done the Synthesis Doomsday Rush before. It's okay. The thing is that the Synthesis effect until you get to level 3 isn't very good. So you kind of, once you get to the end of it, like all the Doomsdays kind of look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Not in their effects, but in you win.
Alright, Syndicate mods now, I think. We can jump into those.
Yeah. Where'd Mr. No go?
He's gonna hop in later.
This is probably the thing we really would have wanted him around for. He's definitely going to be more familiar with this than I am.
It's whatever. We'll see when he shows up.
So,
maybe his computer died.
Maybe. The big thing to talk about with Synthesis is the kind of combo between Indentured and oh hey, cool. Hey, Mr. No, please talk about Syndicate and crit chance so I don't have to.
Okay. Sorry, my wireless dropped out for a second there.
See?
So the basic deal with Syndicate is that you have multiple ways of buffing crit chance for your Indentured. And so you take this unit, which is, it's kind of okay, but it's a tier 1 infantry, nothing really special. And then you make it dirt cheap with Indentured contracts, and then you give it a bunch of crit chance, and you spam that. And that's pretty okay until T3s start coming out onto the field. So you have the 10% innate from an Overseer, which is you have to have 1 Overseer per stack for that. That does not stack with the it doesn't stack with additional Overseers or with the big man in the chair subjugator.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the
amplifier.
If you're going down that, so if you're going down that route, you probably want to tech down the Syndicate mod line. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you put on the Overseer to buff Indentured with that. Enforce Control or whatever it is. There's that other mod first that gives damage, and then Cerebral Amplifier gives crit chance. And you can throw that together with some other stuff. So what I mentioned earlier was that you have Purifiers get the bonus crit chance at prime rank, and so you can stack with that. And if you go down the Synthesis route, you can stack with that. if you ever pick up an assembly city, you can start throwing crit chance stuff on them. It's pretty good. Because you just end up with an army of highly spammable units that don't especially matter and have bonus damage and crits on every attack.
Yeah, I didn't put that stuff in there about the control amplifiers, but it is pretty relevant to crit chance because that's kind of a thing Indenture do pretty well.
Yes.
All right, so that's Syndicate.
Just briefly, there's several variations on this. The first is that Purifier build. The second is if you can get reliable access to a unit that you can put control collars on, you can do the same thing. So control collared Vorpals are pretty good. Control collared Siphoners are similarly pretty good because you basically take that baseline unit and then you give it this mod, and suddenly the entire crit build works on it. Yeah. You don't have to plan this in any way. You can just throw this onto something and it'll work, and it's part of your existing build. It's pretty cool.
That psi resistance is pretty nasty too. It's what I know you don't like it.
I have tried that Malictor Rush I think 3 different times now, and every time I get blind countered by Syndicate, and that's really annoying.
Well, it's like damage is pretty OP, so I'm okay with it.
I think that basically covers Syndicate units and mods. So I think the last thing for us to talk about really here is Number mods, and then we can start getting into different units. I don't know if we really want to go through every single unit that has like a morale effect.
Yeah,
we might just quickly go through like here's ones that have significant crit builds or are where crit is like a significant factor in their value.
Yeah, the written version will have it, so if people want to see that, it's there. But I think having that discussion with you three or you two and me is helpful. So yeah, the mods, there's the Consuming Gaze. I mean, you aren't going for the Broken Mind, but he does potentially give that.
I think we could wrap it up as all of Cynumbra inflicts Broken Mind.
Pretty much.
Yeah, like it's all over the place.
There's Forbidden Mantra, which does something different. That gives Dark Elation. Is that a mod, Forbidden Mantra? I think it is.
Elation. I think that's an op, isn't it?
There's a hero skill that can give Dark Elation. I don't know if there's an op for it.
Oh, yeah, there's an op that's called like Blessing of the Void or something.
Oh, this says psionic buffs give this, so it's not like a skill. It's like whenever you Cerebral Overdrive or something.
If you wanted to do, oh wait, this doesn't actually work with Syndicate because Dark Elation is a morale buff.
There's actually very few cases where the Forbidden Mantra's Dark Elation is particularly valuable because the other source, or the other big source of, mass applying psi buffs is Kirko, and I believe. Hold on, there. Okay, I'm sorry.
The Cynumbra end cap.
Yeah, the Cynumbra end cap. But there's also the Cynumbra hero skill. Which is a mass psi buff, as well as it's the same ability that the Herald of Oblivion has. Those also grant Dark Elation already, so it's not useful to have
of the Abyss
for those. Yeah,
I found it. So good. It's all friendlies.
Yep. Yeah. So Cynumbra
is that not actually a psi buff?
It should be.
Huh, look at that.
Okay. Yeah. Where does it say that?
General, I wouldn't say Cynumbra really. What?
Where does it indicate that it's a psi buff or not?
No, Anthem of the Abyss. Anthem of the Abyss is a psi buff. Usually it's specified.
It doesn't say it is.
A lot of things.
It would specify lower left where it would normally say weapons.
I've definitely used Anthem of the Abyss, and it's definitely worked for psi buffs.
I could have changed at some point.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Well, you'll find out in the write-out. Viewers, if you want to discover the answer to this question, just scroll down.
You know, for units, I may just start with Syndicate's stuff, which we've talked a lot about already, and add that there's this unit called a Zenith, which I'm sure you've never seen anybody use.
I've literally never seen that in a combat.
But it has a thing that gives morale. It won't benefit your indentured, but it will help out your heroes.
All friendly units on the battlefield, that's pretty neat.
I think I killed one of these in a spaceport once.
Sounds right.
Which makes it approximately one encounter less rare than that T-Rex T4.
Indeed. But yeah, that's all I had for the Syndicate units. There's Sign Number guys you can fill with Despair, which gives minus 400 morale. It's slightly better.
Yeah, Sign Number in general does a lot of negative morale. It doesn't really do a whole lot of granting crit chance so much as unless you have one of the game's numerous sources of ignoring negative morale effects, they will tend to tank your morale pretty fast.
Right.
In any kind of drawn out fight. I think we can move on to like specific crit strategies. I don't really think we need to go over every unit again.
Okay.
But like, let's definitely take some time to talk about Assembly, who have Vorpal Snipers. Vorpal Snipers have an inherent plus 15% crit, which is both just in general pretty good. Even if you're not really attaching anything else to them, it makes their shots generally more consistent because you have this 15% chance to also hit. You get that extra accuracy, and occasionally you get a pretty decent chunk of damage out of them when they're normally kind of low damage. The big thing about them, though, is you can put ocular implants on them to take that 15% crit chance to 35% crit chance, which on its own, 5 Cosmite for that. I guess 6 Cosmite because it's a T2 unit. Again, figure across 18 units, that is 108 Cosmite. But you're getting, once you're at 35% crit chance, that means you're getting 6 crits per turn. That's enough that like you can rely on that. You're definitely going to be getting a lot of crits just from this one quick combo. And then you can throw on, more stuff on top of that. You can get morale. I guess like if you're playing Celestine or something. Pretty nice bonus if you're also putting that stagger resistance mod on them. They also get enlightened, so they get plus 200 morale from that. So brings them up to 45% crit chance already. Stuff like the 10% from synthesis, all of that. If you get cross-racial stuff, then there's a lot of neat combos there. None of those I would really call a win condition for the Vorpal Sniper so much as while you're getting to your win condition, this is such a simple, research cheap, kind of resources cheap, just way to get a high value unit very quickly. If you need some kind of stopgap for while you're reaching your win condition, or just in general, it's not something that's going to win you a game usually, but it is a high value move, and it's always something to keep in mind is that for very little you can get a lot of value out of Vorpal Snipers.
They're the only one with that power shot tag, right?
You can also get it from the hero equipment, the Vorpal Sniper Rifle.
Oh, I see.
Assembly, if you have an Assembly City, you can get that for any hero. It just shows up in the shop.
That's a good point. I like that.
It's really good, especially since if you're starting.
I usually switch to that sniper.
Yeah, if you're starting with Assembly, I mean, one of the Assembly hero skills is stagger resistance already, so like it's a pretty good sniper rifle.
Okay, I think we could talk about propagators like very, very quickly if you're ready.
Yeah, propagators, one of the propagandas, I guess, one of the broadcasts they can do, gives plus morale, which I don't think it's very much. I think it's like plus 200, but
yeah,
from one unit and one ongoing op, you get an effect that gives 10% crit chance to 18 units. That's really high value for very little investment. That's pretty dang good. Is it actually plus 400? No, wait, it's plus
no, it's
400.
this plus 200. Yeah. No, it's motivated is the Devar skill that their foremen and heroes can get. But no, it's 200. It's nice. It helped us in that last fight in the
motivation. Motivation is more effective when you're yelling it at their face instead of broadcasting it.
Yeah, again, getting into that like crit math of across an entire 18-unit army, paying 90 Cosmite for that, pretty poor. To get 10% crit chance on all of your units, pretty poor, investment for results. When all you're really investing is a single flying unit and some pretty low tier techs that you did, it's pretty valuable. That's going to ultimate. That's like not quite for free, but pretty dang close. And you get those extra, 2 or 3 critical hits per turn out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty nice.
There's some other things they get later that do other effects that are very, very nice. Or it depends on which side of the fight you're on. But yeah, it's powerful.
Earlier today, we had that PvP fight where it was us 2 against Sinsling, and I was only using Militia, and he had a bunch of Rift Generators. We would not have won that fight if it wasn't for all of our units getting plus 200 morale, which gave us a couple lucky crits that turned the fight around.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think there's anything else in Shikarn, so I'm going to move on to Amazon. There's only one thing that I wanted to point out in units, Arborian Queen. It's spelled Arborian Queen apparently wrong. But she has a skill that lets you boost morale. It's kind of like the Zenith thing. It has the ability to give people extra morale and do a couple other things. But I think this one's actually better. I think people are more likely to use the Arborian Queen.
Mm-hmm. I think we've brought up the Foreman and Devar a few times. We can kind of skip over that because Devar has an ability that gives someone plus 400 morale. That's between 5 and 15% extra crit chance that you're getting. That's about where that conversation begins and ends. Going to Oathbound. Oathbound again don't have a lot of plus crit that I would consider like building around, but they have a lot of like places where crit is relevant. Stuff like the Warden banner gives plus 20% crit chance, which if you have 1 Warden isn't that big a deal. If you have 5 Wardens and they each throw out a banner that gives 20% crit chance to a unit every turn, that ends up adding up for something that you're kind of getting for free. Wardens are, I think, a very underrated unit.
The thing about having extra crit chance as Oathbound, though, is you can guarantee a crit. So it's kind of like if you're doing that on a unit that has extra crit chance, you kind of wasted the crit chance.
That's true. But I think the thing that's nice about it in general, though, is you're kind of like, at no point are you choosing that unit or using that ability specifically for that crit chance.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that's already a valuable unit or a valuable usage of that ability before you take the crit chance into account. And 20% is a hefty amount. That's more than Vorpal snipers get inherently, and Vorpal snipers kind of break the game.
Yeah.
They don't break the game anymore. The Vorpal snipers are very good once you take that crit chance into consideration. So it's just pretty nice. It's kind of what takes this unit from being mediocre to actually pretty good, is just like all of these little invisible bonuses that it gives you, and like kind of like a lot of nice to haves.
Yeah.
The other big thing being Watchers giving you Providence with Oathbound, just another source of guaranteed crits. But we've already talked about Providence a decent amount. Being able to mass produce units that do that is very good. Being able to, again, most combats tend to be decided in between 1 and 3 turns. Being able to say on that turn, okay, 5 of my guys are going to have crits no matter what. That's very valuable.
I think this unit's pretty good. I haven't seen it used too much, but it's got Unwavering. It can give Unwavering, which gives plus 30% crit chance when your health is below 30%.
Dude, take a second to look at the ability that gives that and tell me that that is not a completely busted T3 unit.
Yeah, heal target unit or resurrect one with 50%. No, that's pretty broken. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's before we even look into his other shit. Diviners are absurd units. Sinsling has used them. It made me really upset.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the most valuable thing about them is probably the AoE Fatalism, and I think it's like every other turn is Gift of Foresight, gives you an AoE Precognition, is also pretty valuable.
Star Guides can give morale, I think. Yeah, this thing. It's not
Star
bad.
Guides, it's okay. Let's see, we've already talked about Syndicate. I don't think we need to talk about Xenoplague or Sunumber anymore.
Yeah.
Star Guides.
I was thinking the same. That's why I jumped down to this. And teachers got something else that they can do. They can just give enlightenment to people in their stack. I think that's their gimmick that helps with morale. So now we could talk just a little bit about the units that get morale or critical as a prime rank, because I think that kind of like it helps you see which units may fit into this build. It's pretty easy to miss that reverse engineers get morale. I know I didn't think about that for a long time.
I would usually I see plus prime rank morale or prime rank critical on a unit, and I could just kind of disregard that. I don't think that's, in most cases, really something that you need to take into account in your decision making. But for some cases, when it's on units that like already also have like access to another source of crit, like how bulwarks get prime rank critical,
Yeah.
and then you can also use a foreman to give them a bunch of morale that gives them additional crits. That ends up comboing into prime rank. Bulwarks are pretty dang good especially if you have a foreman around with them. I don't know if I'd recommend specifically building for that, but that's definitely something to keep in mind as a high value combo.
Did you know that overseers have extra morale when they get the prime rank? You see, it's easy to miss, but they fit into that crit build, and I think that's worth highlighting.
Yeah, okay.
Aspirants also get extra morale, which is pretty useful, like because they can get up and do a lot of damage to some higher tier units, especially if they crit.
First
strike
it's
is
not
nice.
going to happen very often, but when an aspirant crits, it's brutal.
You can definitely, I think you can definitely build towards it. Let's see, scavengers get the critical, electrocutioners do. Some of them are single action things that work really well with the crit stuff. I think it means either have to get really close and do a lot of damage, which if you're doing crits, that's a good thing, or you're really far away and you don't need to worry that much about defense. Engulfers get extra crit chance. Mirages, some flying units, pretty powerful flying units in the first place. Having that extra crit chance, I think, is awesome. Deadeyes get the crit. Firebrand get the crit. Unleashed, Gunship, it's another flying unit. But yeah, it's just like units that are up in the sky and can kind of not worry about defending them. Don't need to worry about defending themselves nearly as much. Get that extra crit chance.
I think we can move on to stuff like hero skills, which I don't think there's many hero stuff that plays into this too much. There's of course stuff like Oathbound can get the Grant Providence thing on their heroes from Watcher Scrolls. Something that is kind of niche, but definitely worth bringing up is with Assembly. Assembly heroes get Cybernetic Overdrive, which if you then, for whatever reason, have an Oathbound city captured and you get their first tech to give momentary insight, you can combo that with the Cybernetic Overdrive that you get from the hero and the Linear Accelerator that you get from the op, and even potentially like throwing a Siphoner in there. You could cast Momentary Insight on one of your units to give it plus 100% crit, have it take its normal turn with at 100% crit, Cybernetic Overdrive it to take another turn with 100% crit, Linear Accelerate it so it takes a third turn with 100. Well, I guess you use Momentary Insight for that. So, anyways, you can combo Cybernetic Overdrive with Momentary Insight if you are Assembly and capture an Oathbound city, or theoretically, if you are playing Oathbound and capture an Assembly city and get an Assembly hero, give them Cybernetic Overdrive and also have a Cyborg unit for them to use it on. Extremely niche in that case, but also you can do it the other way too.
I would have never thought of that. I need to play Assembly more. I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I was looking at the hero skills was the Domok, Army Leader, and Instructors. It's built really well for that crit chance, and then if you combine that with the Assault Exoskeletons, you should be able to crit pretty often.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy 35% crit.
Yeah, let me just bring that up here, 10% there.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely combo that with like using Deadeyes or their Refractor units to play kind of long range game. Or actually, no, I don't think their Refractors can take Assault Exoskeletons, can they? Anyways, you can use Deadeyes if you happen to get Assembly. if you get an assembly city, can you put ocular implants onto Deadeyes, or is that cyborg only?
Let's check. The tag is biological and cyborg.
Yeah, so you could put them onto Deadeyes, and then that would be fucking 55% crit chance.
Pretty bonkers.
That's pretty cost efficient right there.
They have extra crit chance on their Overwatches. Heroes can give themselves deadly sight, which is something I've never used, but I could see some people liking it because Overwatch can be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else?
I mean, the last thing you have on your list here is going to be stuff like operations and doctrines, which I think we've covered any of the ones of note.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of like random ones that are like, recycle of life gives assembly plus 400 morale. Never going to come into play, but it's there on the list. I think it's similarly. I can't think there's very much in here that's notable, except for if you're playing with Empire quests on, the Warmonger plus 20% morale against other empires. Pretty good doctrine because it gives you that 10% crit across your entire army, and it's not even, you didn't have to like pay any costs in the army to do that. The only cost you're really paying for it is that doctrine slot.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty decent use of that doctrine slot. It's not as absurdly overpowered as it used to be. Gave plus 400 morale. Plus 200 morale is just pretty nice.
Yeah. I did want to point out that I think Vanguard are particularly not well suited. They don't do crit chance very well. They do have some things that allow you to do crit chance, like the Vanguard have martial inspiration, which gives plus 200 morale to units in the stack, I believe, but only in that stack. It's just not as good as other options to do that. Yeah,
Vanguard, I think you're never really going to be thinking too much about crits with them. It's definitely useful to have that information when you're playing Vanguard because they do interact with the mechanic a few times, but for the most part, it's not a major part of pretty much any race really. But in particular for Vanguard, I think they can definitely get away with just not really interacting with the mechanic at all. It's just like there's a few scenarios in which that might change your decision making, in which you use, like, I think they have a hero ability that lets them ignore negative morale effects or something.
Mm-hmm. I did kind of want to get both of your thoughts on the recycle of life operation. It's right at the end of the assembly doctrines, and it gives a lot of morale, and they get research pretty quickly, right?
I remember that the end caps are recycle of life.
They could potentially reach it. It's
since you have, I mean, if you're talking about any end cap doctrine, definitely assembly are the most able to get to it, but I don't think those are both kind of read like win more to me. Like if you're already in an advantageous position, they'll secure it better for you, but I don't think there's many games that you're going to win that you would have lost if you did not cast that op.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're strong enough to like rush for them, because I think for both of them, you kind of have to already be able to win battles. They're kind of like, okay, you win a major battle, and then this will aid you in snowballing off of that so that you remain uncontested for the rest of the game, but you still have to get on top without it, which is the hard part.
Well, so the thing is, recycle of life is kind of the opposite, because it's 25 energy for each friendly unit.
Oh, I don't even... Okay,
so the potential idea there is that you're spamming a bunch of cheap shit and it dies, and that's your plan.
That's sort of like a bounce back.
You know what?
Doctrine. That's like
yeah, it kind of is.
You lose a major fight, that helps you come back from it.
And the really funny thing here is that militia units count. So you'll just be getting constant energy income while you have this doctrine up from random stuff attacking your militias.
That's actually pretty cool. That's great in single player. Take advantage of that, please.
Yeah. By the time you get that doctrine, I don't think that level of income is really going to matter anymore. But yeah, that is a nice little side benefit.
Before we wrap up, I really want to highlight that you can condemn people to drained, which is so fun. It's amazing. Because apparently you can do them on mindless units. I couldn't believe that worked in that MP a few weeks ago now.
That was a relatively recent change that they made, I think. They like made it they like nerfed drained, but then made drained easier to get.
Mhm.
But yeah, condemned is a pretty nasty status effect, especially if it's against units with 0 morale, because it'll put them at negative 400 immediately, which gives them a 40% fumble chance.
Yeah.
That's a very that's kind of a desperation move where you see a unit, like an enemy unit, that's really going to just knock you right out this next turn, and you don't have another way of stopping it. You kind of just throw that on them and pray, and you have a decent shot. Like,
Mhm.
you're more likely than not, you're still going to die, but like that'll, if you do that enough times, you're gonna see some victories where you would have lost otherwise.
I like Hollow Illusion and high frequency for giving fumble chance. I think that's one of the nice things Shakar have access to. Like out of all the people, all the options for fumble chance, they have the most, so that's cool. But I'm looking through this and I'm not seeing much else. I think we hit all of the really big points, and there will be more in the written version on things like the racial happiness and how exactly that works. That took a lot of testing actually for me to figure out what happens on each step, because it's not exactly it's not symmetrical. The relationship going up is slightly different than going down, unlike with morale. There's also popular support and other things, but yeah, that'll be in the written version. Thanks so much, you guys. I really appreciate you guys sticking around and chatting to me about all this fun stuff.
Yeah, no problem.
My pleasure.
Yeah, see you around.